Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to show you how to mark your leather. This could be for stitching or edge creasing. I'm Simon and welcome to Oakside Saddlery. The video here we're going to show you marking leather. If you want a bonus tip you're going to have to hang on right to the end and I'll show you a nice simple way of doing some of this. First tool we're going to look at then is our bone folder. Our bone folder is a nice little tool, not bone anymore, these are plastic. I'm sure you can buy some nice bone ones. It's got a rounded sort of edge to it, flat on the sides, curved at one end, pointy-ish at the other end. Really good useful tool. You can see I use it for a manner of things looking at the state of it. One of the things it does is marks our leather. So marking our leather is quite easy. You can place it on there and then just drag it down. And we can see there, it makes a nice little line into that leather. This is a bit of Sedgwick's, I think it is, shoulder by the feel of it. So it's a nice little line it puts down the side there. Great for putting our stitches on, anything like that if we're going to do it. The other one we've got then, the other tool, is a roundel. So a roundel has a small point to it. It's not too bad, it's not majorly sharp, but it's sharp enough. It would cut into the leather if you pushed over hard on it. It's good for, you can make a point with it. So if you wanted to put a line in, you could just put a dot and that's where your line's going to be. If you could mark two dots and you could draw between them. Again, I can do a little freehand one there, so it's nice and flat on its edge. Just draw that line through to it. So that shows you the lines there. So we've got two lines now. Problem is though, you can't just willy-nilly just stick some lines in, can we? We need to think about how they're going to put them in there, where we're going to go from. So for that then we're going to want something like a steel ruler. Any sort of ruler will do. This is just an engineering ruler, it's nothing special. You can get cork backed and rubber backed ones that don't slip. That's more if you're cutting against the edges of them. But when we're marking, we just want to go for an edge. So we can go for a side there. We're going to go for what, 2.5mm in there, out to an 8mm over here. So there's our two marks. And these two marks then, we're going to put our awl on up one end, line it up, touch it on the other end, and if we lay it flat, draw it between it, we've got a nice straight line. So we could put our stitch marks onto that, and that would give us a lovely stitch line to stitch into. Good, so apart from marking our leather with there, we can draw lines and things like that. But the ruler itself is not just the one thing we need, is it? We're going to need to make some edges that we can cut against. So we could get ourselves a nice straight edge. We'll go for one down there somewhere, draw our line, and then we can cut against that. I'm going to quickly cut that off and just make it straight. I'm only going to use a craft knife. Craft knives are nice and simple. They're not complicated, so I'm just going to guess. I'm going to line it up, drag it through. And if I do a few cuts of this, at some point it's cut through. There you go. So there's our nice straight edge. So that straight edge then, we may need to put something along that side there. So to get something along the side, we can use a couple of other tools. This time then we've got our dividers. So these are just standard type dividers. They're really old actually. I've had these for years. I've got a feeling they was probably my dad's beforehand. If we look at the points, we can see that one point is slightly longer than the other. So we can place it against an edge, wherever we want it to be, wherever we want our line to be, and we can draw a line. And it gives a line that's parallel to that edge. And if we're looking at that line there then, that gives us a line that's parallel to the edge. If our stitch line, say we had a 5mm stitch line or 4mm stitch line, we can put it on our ruler, work out where we want it to be. So there's 4, place it on that edge, draw a line down, and we've got a line that's lovely and parallel to that edge line there. The other way we can get our line is with a screw crease. So this is a screw crease. Now screw creases are a nice little tool. They're an old-fashioned type of tool. I don't tend to use them such as a screw crease. In fact, I get around it by having two separate screw creases set to my edges that I use. So one is a stitching, this is my stitch mark line, and this one is my edge crease line. So you may notice on a lot of leather, you get a lovely line right down that side, nice crisp line. Well, to get that crisp line, this is what you can use. It's a screw crease. I've seen these used in various ways, but I'm going to show you the way that I would use them. So if you think of this, I'm going to label some parts up for you. So this part here is the toe, and that part there is the heel. Now whether that's what they're really called, or whether that's just a name that makes sense to me, that's what I'm going to call them. So this is the toe, this part is the heel. So when we're dragging this along an edge, we're going to come backwards first and we're going to have it up onto the toe. So I'm going to exaggerate this, drag it up on the toe and draw it down. When I want to come forwards, I'm going to put it onto the heel and slide it back. So I can get my line by going backwards and forwards. And it gives me a really nice, crisp line. And they come across really good there, don't they? So that's a nice edge for me. So that is my edge crease that I'm using there to get that edge line. For my stitch line then, I can use the other one that's slightly bigger. If you only want one, you just adjust that crease. And on that one, I'm going to do exactly the same. So line it up on one side, pull it down, push it back, pull it down, push it back. We'll go into more detail on a edge creasing at a later date on a different video. I can heat these and things, hence the reason this one's really black, because it gets heated up more. Other things then. Yes, I can make a nice cut, but if we're looking at this, we can see that's not a 90 degree there, isn't it? Most leather work, we want 90 degrees. So if we look at our mat, this is just a bog standard Amazon cutting mat. Nothing special. It's quite good for leather work. A head knife will cut through this if I'm not careful and it will slice lumps out of it, but it's good for what I want. So let's go for a nice simple way of getting an edge then. I'm going to roughly line this edge up with one of these lines along here. I want then to get a cut across there, so all I've got to do now is lace my ruler on top there, roughly line it up. So there's our mark. I'm going to take my roundel, draw a line, and that would be about 90 degrees. That's not bad, is it? So that's easy to do. If I wanted to do it a different way, I can use a set square or an engineer's square, whatever you want to call them. So this is my 10-1. I've used it for years again. The only problem I have with it is quite thick. So you can get nice thinner ones, which I should really treat myself to. So if I put it on the leather, you can see that the actual thing sits out the back, which means I normally have to do it on the edge of the table. Not going to be really good here because the edge of the table's over here. So I'm going to use just one of my little cutting blocks. Don't use these very often. I tend to use it if I'm going to smash all the way through with stitch markers. So I'm going to lay that on the edge, line it up, and we can do the same again. Take my roundel and draw a line. So we have two lines there now, both of them at 90 degrees. So if I was to cut that off, that would give me a nice 90 degree cut on there. Other options then, let's see what else we can think of. We can use big squares like these. Problem with a lot of these squares is they're not always 90 degrees. And if we actually have a look at some of these and put my decent one on it, we can see whether it is. And you can sometimes feel this one's not too bad, a little bit of movement on it. This is my better one. My other one, which is this one, it's 90 odd degrees on the inside, not so good on the outside, and it's a little bit sharp, so it's all right for patterns, not so good. But if I place my set on there and do it, you can see there's a very faint gap just in that edge. It's not quite straight, and this one here, you get the same again. See where it's pushing up tight on one end and leaving a gap? You can see the other one through there. So it's not quite square. So if I want a big 90 degrees, it's not so good. Now to use one of these ones then, problem you've got is one, me picking it up because my little stumpy fingers aren't very good, so I have to go to the edge all the time. If I wanted to get a 90 degrees to this edge, I need to be able to get that lined up with there on that edge. So you can send around, I can put something on the side of it like that and try and get it into it. That's pretty much there. Or I can just push something against the edge, push up against it there. So now I've got the leather pressed up tight, this pressed up tight. And then draw my line down. So we've now got another line that's 90 degrees. How can we test that even more? If we turn this over and do it on the other side, we would see, because if there's a difference, you'll end up with something like that. But that works quite well. So we have a couple of ways then that we can get these 90 degrees. Let's put a cut in there this time then. So I'm going to put my edge on here. I'm going to butt up against it, line up. Let's get rid of some of them lines. Go up to there. Do I need to mark it? No, I would do if I was going to cut with my head knife. I'm just going to slice it off. So we're going to go through there, tight at the end, gentle start, really push down at the end, Once it's ready, it will come free. Once it's free, do it. Worry about moving this afterwards. So we've got 90 degrees in there. So if I'm going to put my 90 degree in there, and perhaps I want another 90 degree over this side. So let's have another look then. This time we'll try it a different way. So I'm going to put my set square onto here this time. Just get a line on that edge. Going to draw a faint line down there. So there is my nice line for me again. If I want to cut that this time, let's lose that for the time being. I've got my ruler on the edge of it. It's a bit awkward to see now, so we're going to line up part there, and we'll draw a ledge cut on it. So now we have two 90 degrees. Let's have another look at this crease then. So if I'm putting a crease line down here, what I don't want to do, see where it's here where we've cut this off and it's gone right over the edge. If you do that and go right over the edge, you get a dent in the side there, and it doesn't look very nice when you actually stitch it together. So what we ideally want to do then is start just short, draw our line, so backwards on the toe, forwards on the heel, backwards on the toe, forwards on the heel. Then we're going to come around to the other side. We're going to do the same again. So I'm going to backwards on the toe, and just as I get near to that end, I'm going to pause a little bit and go forwards again. So what I want to do is to line that so the two of them meet up on that edge there without running over the edge. Don't mind a little bit of run past, but you just want them to sit there so they sit a bit nice. And it makes it look a lot nicer, doesn't it? It looks more professional, as though we've put a bit of effort into it. So that's our creases. We can use a crease for doing things. We can use our dividers for putting another edge line in there for stitching against. We can use our roundel, which you've noticed I've used a lot now. It's one of my favourite tools, hence the reason it's in such a state. We can use our bone folder. To get our nice proper edges, we can use different rulers as well. So this ruler's got a stop on it. Now, quite handy. I don't cut against this one, I use it purely for measuring. So if I wanted something that's, say, 40mm thick, I can mark that, tighten it up. If I then place that on the edge there, take my roundel, I can draw a line. I'm going to come down a little bit further, draw another line, come down a little bit further, I can draw another line. So why have I done 3 marks then? I could have done 2, couldn't I, and just put the ruler between. If I do 3 marks, it actually shows, if I've done one of these a bit short, so I'm going to deliberately do that one a bit short, and put my mark in there, when I actually put my ruler on it and try and line them up, I can go, right, there's one, there's the other, oh hang on, one's down here. If it was the other way around, I might get here and here, and now I've just drawn a crooked line. Whereas if I've got 3 marks, one there, I can see that one, I can see that one, I know that that is now 40mm away from that edge there. And it's just another way of being sure that I've got a measurement right. I don't want to get it wrong if I can help it, especially if I'm cutting my leather. Once I've cut my leather, then I actually have a mess, don't I? And it's waste. A bit like that to me is waste to me. I might make something with it, I might use it for something else, might make a video with it. You never know. The other thing we sometimes need to do is to cut ourselves a curve. Now, cutting curves are one of these funny things. Some people cut in straight lines, some people can cut a curve. It just depends on your skill and what you're at to and how you get used to it. If I'm using this, I'm going to cut in straight lines. If I start to use my head knife on this one, I might cut a curve if it's big. I might cut straight lines if it's a bit smaller. It depends on what you're up to. So getting a curve in here then, I want a nice curve that's going to sit into that edge. We can use simple things like these, where we can place this somewhere. So you're like there and there, I think that's lined up. I could draw my arc and I've got something to cut. You can change to get your sizes round. They all work. But when I start coming to these smaller ones, it's a little bit harder because I'm now starting to run out of room. And when I start to get to these ones and this one, it doesn't work as well. But they do a job. They do what you want them to do. Washers and varieties of other round things. It doesn't matter what round size it is. I've even used buckets before now. If I need a big curve, bin lid. I used the bin lid to get a nice curve in one time. Whatever you need. So grease pot. The grease pot would make a nice big curve. Lots of things can be used. Anything round that you can place on the edge. To be sure you're getting it in a nice place, then we can look at it and go by eye and think, yep, that's pretty much it. or we can use our squares again. So we've had measuring squares. This is a carpenter's type square, I think, using for carpentry work. I think they're designed to be screwed into a bench, but I could place it up against that, place my washer into that area so it's nice and tight. That then gives me my bit to cut round, or as we're talking about marking, to mark round. Probably shouldn't have done it on that one, might have put a nice square edge on, but never mind. But we can just see that line there, so that would give us our line to cut round, and if we really want a desperate curve we could sand it down as well. Makes it really nice. So some sort of carpentry. So my first top tip, I've been messing about here with bits of washers and things like that. When I mark my leather, I only want the marks that I put on it. I don't want marks of stuff that's been left on the table, and then I go and put my leather on it, and then it leaves a mark on the back of it. So whenever you're doing stuff and you've been using things, just give it a brush down. You can even use a nice little brush, you can sweep it off your hands, you can blow on it, whatever you need to do to get rid of it. Now for our final parts then. We have one crease line. We've gone up to that edge but not gone quite over. We've got our second crease down the other side. We've got marks on here that might be cut lines, for instance. They might be stitching lines. So let's have a look then. If I want to put a stitch line down this edge, I'm going to use my screw crease. So my screw crease could give me one. I can come down the edge there, get almost to the end. I can come around this. This just happens to be a curve. And again, I'm going to come it round to that point there. At some point in there, say I wanted to get right into that bit there, I can bring that through. Now I'm starting to get a little part where it's something I need to get to, and we may need to change how we're going to do it. So for instance, say I needed to mark into there with my screw crease, a hot crease. So not only do we have a screw crease, we also have a single screw crease, and again you can see this is one is black. The reason these go black for me is because I heat them over a candle. What I have to remember to do is, if it's a light leather in particular, is wipe any soot off. So paper towels again, I've mentioned paper towels before, wipe it off. There's no reason why you can't use a hot plate. I haven't got any electric as such for that. You could use a gas torch, anything like that. Anything, just warm it up. Don't get too hot, burns the leather. So I find a candle for me is just right. It leaves a nice mark. I haven't heated any of these up. Say for instance this was going to be a bridle point, so I've cut down here, and now I need to crease one side and the other side. In fact, let's show you that. So a bridle point, pause for 1 minute, I'm just going to punch a hole, I'll be back. Right, I'm back. I've punched a hole through here. The reason I punch a hole through is it stops any leather tearing further up. So if you notice on some cheap bridles, quite often you'll find a tear at the end of it. Cheaper leathers. Good leathers like the Sedgwicks here, just it will not tear. You can spend here all day doing this and you won't tear it. It's really nice. So I need to get a line then that's down there. So we're going to just make these measurements up. I need a measurement line down there. Dividers again. 1 point longer. I'm going to unscrew it until it reaches the centre of that hole. That's where my mark wanted to be. So I'm going to draw my line. That's what I'm going to cut. Down in that line there. Just going to cut that, be back. Back again. So I've cut this now. So we've got two parts. So this would simulate, admittedly it wouldn't be a very nice version, but it'd be a bridle. So we might have a throat lash and then the cheek pieces come down that side. So they have two parts on a strap, runs to the headpiece back there. If you know about horses, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you'll be going, what's he going on about? But I need to put my creases down these lines. So I can get this side. Again, I'm just going to start short there, come up to here. At some point, I have to be careful because it starts to try and lift it out. Coming back the other way. So again, toe first, we drag it back on the toe, push it forward on the heel, back on the toe, forward on the heel. For this last part then, this is when our single crease comes in. So my first point that I want to finish for is I want a centre line that's roughly up there, and it's going to be about there. And then what I've got to do just by eye is push it up. I'm coming forward on the heel again to that point. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm just going to push it up, slide it round and finish at the same point. So we've got essentially our two straps and our crease lines running up and around, back down the other side, and then that will go to the points and the punch holes and everything else. Might even look at a bridle at some point. So there's lots of ways we can mark our leather. So I hope you enjoyed your video. Some of the tools then: screw crease, wing dividers, roundel. Used that a lot, didn't I? Roundel got used a lot. Bone folder, that got used a lot. Rulers definitely get used a lot. Don't worry about cutting. We'll look at that another day. Set squares. All of them tools we use. So what was my bonus tip then? Free bonus tip. I haven't got all of them. I've got one of these. Oh, forgot my dividers. Haven't got a bone folder. Haven't got a screw crease. Ugh. But I need to put a line down there. Let's have a quick look then. We've got one line here, but I want it really parallel to that. There's no way I am going to do it. It's my bonus tip then. I'm going to put one finger against the side of that leather. I'm going to push my hand out, draw it down the side there. Notice it? So finger against the side of the leather, pick where you want it to be, hold it in there. I'm pressing against the leather, drawing that line down, keeping my hand nice and steady, putting it in there. Hopefully you can see it. Let's have a look on this straighter edge then and try it with the bone folder. So same again, there's my first line, wasn't it? So we'll just pretend we've done that. So wedge it against it, draw your line. Open it out a little bit for your stitch line, draw it through, and you've got a pretty good stitch line there, wouldn't you? Parallel to the edge, made up where you want it to be. If I needed to transfer that same line somewhere else, all I've got to do is line it up, think where it's pressing, come around to another edge, draw my line down. And I'm pretty much guaranteed where that line is there and where that line is there is going to be the same distance, there or thereabouts, that no one else would notice. So, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Consider subscribing, because I am going to do a series of videos that will elaborate on what we've just been doing. Enjoy yourself, have a nice day. Thank you for watching.